Hello, my name is Stephanie Kuntz, and I've chosen Black and White by David McCulley for my ETC number 2 video. I apologize for any sniffles or stuffiness in my voice. I've got a little bit of a cold. But just to get started, I noticed right away that Black and White's cover told a bit of what was to come in the story. As we saw in Nodelman and Reimer, they pointed out in their article, the cover evokes the essential quality of the story. And that's really clear here. The text is very large and it's very bold. It makes a statement much like the story itself is very bold and different from other picture books. The colors change and are sectioned off, one color from another, just like the pictures are separated within the book. So as we enter the story, the title page begins with a bit of chaos right away, something that I found continued throughout the story. The letters are not in a straight line, instead they're kind of falling down or a little bit slanted down towards the bottom. And the warning box seemed to read as the narrator addressing the reader, which was one of those metafictive narrative traits that was suggested by Pantaleo. So as the story begins, the reader can't ignore the breaking of more traditional boundaries in the story, as Pantaleo pointed out as something to look for in postmodern text. The lines separate into 4 different pictures, or it reminded me of window panes, to give this idea of fragmentation, and leaves the reader wondering, where should I look first? Or is this actually 4 separate stories? So this is unusual as a layout for a story, and it's altogether a little bit chaotic and disordered. There's also a title for each of the 4 panes, so that might also leave the reader thinking maybe this actually is 4 different short stories. As we continue on in the story, not only is the artwork really separated by the 4 panes, but it also varies a lot in the style and the color, which Nodelman and Reimer pointed out to pay attention to. We have the soft, dreamy-like picture on the train to go along with the romantic tale of the new adventure on the train. We have the sepia tone picture in the left corner that reads almost like a comic. It's sort of fun and playful from one of the children's perspectives. But then we have the bright and more saturated pictures. There's the faraway picture from the other side of the railroad tracks, and then the close-up picture of the robber and the cows, too. As the story continues on, it became even harder for me to read the first time going through. So eventually, we have more in the text in each pane, so the reader has to kind of juggle these 4 stories in his or her head at once, which again is speaking to Pantaleo's comment of the chaos and disorder in postmodern literature. It was almost hard for me to separate each story and keep each one straight about what was going on and how each one was progressing. So at this point in the story, or maybe the separate stories, we have each part in mass chaos. There's the cows running, there's the kids who know that something is wrong, the train is delayed, and the boy on the train sees the man waving his fists and shouting. We also see the metafictive device, the Misana beam, or the smaller image of another image that's used. So we have the robber from a previous page is on the TV screen that the kids are watching. There's also the cows that are running across the bottom of one picture and in the next picture on the diagonal corner. And as the plots continue to develop in each pane, we start to wonder, are these 4 stories actually going to start coming together? We see clues that kind of hint at that, but there's still this sense of confusion and disorder, postmodern trait. And if so, how are we as the reader going to be able to piece these parts of the story together? But now we see that we do have 2 stories that have come together. We have the people who are waiting for the train, but they're in some way connected to the family that's in the newspaper outfits, so the 2 pictures that are diagonal from one another. Then we also have the boy on the train, and there's the same train that's waiting for the cows to pass. So it's almost like these are now sort of joined together. And we also have the metafictive device of time being played with a little bit here. It leaves us wondering, will these stories eventually start coming together all the way? And the stories do slowly come together. We see another unusual layout of the text from the top pane, the crashing down of the letters onto the pane below it. They're slowly joining the two stories together. And that kind of play with line kind of makes me think back of the title page that had the words not in a straight line, but falling down or slightly slanted or just kind of scattered. And then just looking back at the different artwork that's featured, we now have a lot of black and white items that are on each of the panes that are really emphasized here, especially on this page. We have the bold text, the news. There's the newspaper with the dog, and then there's the train with the people, and the people are covering up the colorful station behind it. The people are mostly now in black and white with the newspapers they're holding. So it's really interesting as the story is closing and as now the four stories have become one story. We realize this is one story. It's told at four different parts, four different perspectives. So playing with time, playing with different voices here. We also have this change in color. We have just black and white images, which Nodelman and Reimer tell us could be a sign of seriousness, and maybe even here sort of a stillness or just kind of a shift in everything. It kind of reminds us back to our title too. And I think what's really postmodern then about the book Black and White is that we have on this page where the layout is the most traditional according to most other books, is actually probably the most confusing to the reader in this book because it's the only one that's black and white. It's the only one that's all one page and it's not separated into four panes like we saw in other pictures. As we go to the last page of our book, we're back to the four different panes separated, which again now seems normal for this book as a postmodern book, but chaotic compared to more traditional text, which is kind of what postmodernism is sort of all about, breaking down those traditional barriers and traditional ideas. So that's the end of the video, and thank you for watching.